It was impossible to see the horrifying pictures coming out of the Leeds race riots last night and think anything other than the UK has fallen. Bricks being thrown at police who ended up having to retreat. The city eventually burning down, with no sign of law enforcement whatsoever, after a relatively minor incident involving a family and authorities turned into an excuse for all-out violence. Just unbelievable. But I want to show you the video that caused me the most reason to lose hope. So have a look at what's going on here. You will see a police car and it has its lights flashing, so I have no idea if anyone was inside. And the adults who attack this police car then allow the children to do the same thing. Watch what's going on. I'm sorry, to me, that is a broken community. What we are seeing there are not English values or British values. I mean, it truly comes from another world. It's horrifying. And they keep going and going and going and allowing the children. There's a woman getting involved. Seriously, where is the morality? Where is the sense of what's right? And it so clearly isn't right. And it so clearly isn't Britain. And it is so clearly totally lawless. This was the video that upset me most, actually. And of course, this was all in the suburb of Hare Hills, where the violence was centred. And earlier today on GB News, a local from the community told how his home has become a no-go area, and he also explained how he was attacked very recently for wearing an England football shirt.
And you say it's a no-go zone. Do you not feel safe?
I don't feel safe. Nothing used to... I'm 59 years of age now. Nothing used to ever bother me here. Nothing. A week and a bit ago, I was walking on the lane with my England shirt on and my England short. I try to keep as clean as I can, but you'll understand. Take that bloody bit of a different word than that England top off. Get out of our area. I've grown up here, I was born here.
Well, just have to leave it there, Greg. And you say it's a no-go zone. Do you not feel safe?
I don't feel...
And of course you shouldn't feel safe. But the local councillor, Mothin Ali, from the Leeds Green Party, who, in fairness, and good on him for this, had tried to stop the violence and stop many of the new fires being lit, well, he seemed to blame everyone else.
How it started isn't exactly clear. I mean, what's happened is an absolute travesty what's happened. Our community has been let down for so long, whether it's by the local government, whether it's by the national government, whether it's by the local authorities. Our community has been badly let down, our community has been badly neglected, we've suffered massively from underinvestment. this sort of thing was just bubbling under the surface. It took an action by social services. Whether it's right or wrong, I can't be the judge of that. I don't know the details. Whether it was right or wrong, I don't know. But that action sparked a gathering of people. The police had that contained. It was peaceful. It was noisy. I mean, there was a lot of criminal damage done, but it wasn't to this extent. Once the police withdrew, it encouraged the crowds to become even more violent, and this is when we've had looting taking place. A delivery van had all its fridges and everything else taken out and set on fire. This bus behind us, they were attacking this bus, so I got onto the bus, I got the bus driver off, I got the 2 passengers off, and I escorted them round the back away from the crowds to safety. But the thing is, this is our community, it's our neighbourhood. Whatever burns here is ours, it belongs to us. It's our neighbourhood that's being burnt down here. Now, if we don't stand up and take some pride in our own community and stand up and say, look, you can't be doing this on our watch, and the police and the social services and the government authorities can't be forgetting about us, they have to take notice of us, because we're here, we're human beings, and we deserve to be treated like it.
Have you had any update from police and fire brigade?
I mean, the police did try and come back earlier on. A few hours ago, the police tried to come back, but they were being pelted heavily with bricks and bottles and all kinds of other things. Me and a couple of other guys were trying to protect the police, but when it got too much, the police had to back off. They just didn't have the numbers to try and control the crowd.
Can you believe that is a suburb of Leeds? It looks like a war-torn nation in the Middle East. Nigel Farage tweeted, "The politics of the subcontinent are currently playing out on the streets of Leeds. Don't say I didn't warn you." And he's right, even if it prompted the predictable outrage from Labour politicians like Alex Sobel, the Labour MP for Leeds Central, who said the Reform UK leader was, quote, inflaming a situation with misinformation. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. If everyone continues to be too terrified to talk about this mess and the abject failure of multiculturalism and unrelenting mass immigration, then we are going to lose the United Kingdom we so love. To react, it's time for our superstar panel. And today I'm joined by the political commentator Alex Armstrong, and a new voice in British politics during the election campaign, one of the most outspoken young supporters of Reform UK, Nicholas Lissack. Alex, goodness me, these scenes were absolutely shocking last night, and it feels to me like the mainstream media are doing whatever they can to try and push this story into the background today. They're much more interested in the big technology outage, and they want to report much more on the people who are saying that Nigel Farage was somehow spreading misinformation.
Well, talking of technology outages, I do apologise in advance to the audience, as I'm experiencing many technology problems myself at the moment.
It seems to be a bit of an international thing today, but look, you're sounding good. You're sounding good, and we can see you. So that's brilliant.
Fantastic. I mean, look, Dan, you nailed it. The mainstream media are playing the same old tactics, which is completely avoid this massive story which has consumed social media for the last 24 hours. People want to know what's going on, what's happened, and frankly, where the Prime Minister's been, because I think he clocked off at 6 p.m. yesterday, hasn't been seen since. And, you know, Channel 4 haven't even put a story out on this.
That is unbelievable.
They are far more interested in it's completely unbelievable. They're far more distracted with trying to chase down politicians in America, and as you said, Dan, you know, worrying about this outage, which frankly no one in Britain can do anything about, then actually talk about a topic that is really at the hearts and minds of British people, which is what is going on in our country, what has happened in Leeds.
But in all seriousness, Alex, just imagine if this had been England football fans or Tommy Robinson supporters at the weekend. It would be completely dominating every news broadcast and every journalist's agenda in the whole country. The reality is they know if they talk about this situation in Leeds, it actually opens up a far bigger can of worms.
Yeah, and look, we know their agenda is to cover this up as much as possible, and to, now that there's a Labour government, completely reimagine that these things are no longer happening, and that Keir Starmer's waved a magic wand and that it's all gone away. And as you rightfully said, Dan, if this was a bunch of England fans coming out of a stadium and they were starting to riot, the police would be down there with their horses, their batons, their police cars, their riot gear within minutes. It's frankly quite shocking. The police showed up in Leeds at this riot and then drove off in the other direction, probably because they were under-resourced. And this is not the first time we've seen violence in Leeds.
I know, and
we saw high streets stealing from jewelry stores and other places.
Yeah, and the thing is, what message does this send, by the way, to these groups of young men, that actually, if you do riot, then the police are just going to back off? They're not going to bring in their riot gear. They're going to be too terrified to do anything. Nicholas, you were a big supporter of Nigel Farage over the course of the election campaign, and you became one of the young faces of Reform UK, which of course had this groundswell of support from young men. Now, how do you feel about the fact that this Labour MP, Alex Sopel, immediately tried to accuse Nigel Farage, the Reform UK leader, of spreading misinformation when he tweeted his concern about the politics of the subcontinent being imported to the streets of England?
Well, I think he's simply afraid to talk about the real issue here. And the real issue here is that multiculturalism has failed as a concept. I mean, if you look at the streets, if you look at what was going on, it was tremendous. It was horrendous what happened. And this type of rioting, this type of action has only really begun since we started importing basically anybody from the third world into this country. What we witnessed last night was an example of why multiculturalism has completely failed. And, so of course, it's a Labour MP. They're relying on these people for their votes. But, I think we need to go further. I think that any foreigner caught, even if they're here legally, if any foreigner was caught partaking in these riots, they should be deported immediately. And moreover, this is a huge embarrassment for the Labour government, as it completely goes against what they're saying. They're saying that multiculturalism is working, that it's brilliant, and that we're all better off together. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. And the fact that we're afraid, that Labour MPs are afraid to talk about the real issue here, is deeply concerning to our democracy, quite frankly. Deeply concerning.
And the thing is, Alex, this isn't just happening in Leeds. Last night, there were actually riots amongst Bangladeshi locals protesting against a local Bangladeshi issue in Whitechapel, where hundreds of young men attacked the police.
Yeah, look, this is a UK-wide problem. We can't isolate it to one part of Britain, because we know that this has been something that the UK government has spread immigration across the country. It's not just, unfortunately, concentrated in one area so we can focus in our cities. But the reality is, Dan, is that the failure of assimilation goes back 30 years since Tony Blair opened the floodgates, and that has been perpetuated by Tory government after Tory government, who have, even though we have voted in election after election to lower immigration and solve this problem, have still not managed to get the message from the public, hence why young people like Nicholas are turning to reform in their droves. I wonder whether Keir Starmer deliberately left the Vote to 16 bill off, because the reality is many more young people are turning to reform than people think they are. But, Dan, you're right. This is a problem across the country. And look, I was born and raised in London. I can't afford to get a home here. We are at a housing crisis, a policing crisis, a healthcare crisis. The crisis just goes on. It's just a national crisis at this point. And we can't keep on welcoming people into our country that don't share our values as a beginning point of immigration. We must take people from countries that share our beliefs. And that is one of the biggest parts of the failure of our immigration system over the last 30 years. And it's not going to get any better.
And Nicholas, do you get a sense from your friends, from your peer group, from young people at university, that there is a shift towards Farage and Reform UK in the same way that we've seen that shift happen towards Le Pen? and Bardea in France? Because usually you would expect universities, and I know they usually are, to be a hotbed of wokery. But is there a change?
Well, look, I've had my fair share of people accuse me of being every Islamophobe under the sun since I declared for reform. And
Join the club.
I'm quite frankly used to it at this point. But I've had as many people, who've called me these horrible names, who actually have no idea who the hell I am, and they just go out and say this horrible stuff about me. I've had just as many people, if not more, young people like myself, perhaps even younger than me, going down to 15, 16 years old, contacts me and say if they could vote, they would vote for reform because they are sick of this woke political correctness. The fact we can't talk about the real issues in society because our government, our Home Secretary is far too afraid to talk about what's really going on. This was an absolute failure for her and she should resign. She's as bad a Home Secretary as her husband is at dancing, so very terribly. And quite honestly, young people in their droves are turning to reform. When I was at the NEC rally, I helped set that up. I saw so many young faces, so many young kids there. Some guy even brought his newborn baby with him, which was astounding. But there were so many young kids there who were inspired. And they told me, I spoke to a couple of them, I spoke to quite a few of them, and they all said the same thing. The uniparty that governs us, the Tories and Labour, they do not have the British people's interests at heart. They don't really care about the British people. They're infinitely more concerned with foreign policy, as we saw with Keir Starmer. He is right now talking to all the Eurocrats along with King Charles instead of actually addressing what's going on in his country. The country is totally falling apart, yet for some reason Labour, which appears to be a workers' party, doesn't care about the workers. They care about prolonging foreign wars. They don't care about investing in our communities. And so I think a lot of young people who have grown up in the shadow of Blair and Conservative failure are turning to reform because they view reform as their only hope, their only salvation in the future. And I think we're going to see things change even more. I think we're going to see infinitely more young reform support. And I'll tell you right now, it's growing. It's growing immensely. In fact, there are a large group of young reformers, so large, in fact, that we're now petitioning the party to set up a youth wing, And we're also petitioning to have a bit at the conference. So youth speakers, young speakers can come up and inspire the next generation. Because I think one of the most important things that the party has to do is to get the youth vote out, especially in the locals and especially in 29. Imperative. And you know what? We will. It's going to happen.
Indeed, look at Bardella in France. And I hope reform look at someone like you and think, actually, this is someone who we need to be embracing that youth vote and helping to prove that our party is not just for the old blokes, Alex, I think one of the biggest concerns when you have these types of race riots is that the authorities and the politicians say, we can't speculate. Please don't talk about why this happened. And I've seen that a lot today from politicians and even from the local police. And to me, that is all about shutting down this conversation because they never say that when they're talking about anti-lockdown protesters or football hooligans or Tommy Robinson supporters. So why do they say don't speculate anytime there's some sort of issue of race or sectarianism in what's causing very obvious violence? Because let's just state the facts here. We've looked at all of the videos. I haven't shown you all of them because I think some of them will end up being used in court. But there was a particular group of young Muslim men who were responsible for this violence, including, by the way, literally setting double-decker buses on fire.
Incredible stuff.
Okay, well, look, do stand by, Alex Armstrong and Nicholas Lissack, because we're going to come back to you in just one moment. But I have only promised to talk to you about products on this show that are actually life-changing. And this one is a little bit more personal, but the fellas watching are going to completely get it, and the ladies would do very well to treat their husband or boyfriend, because I promise you this is really a game changer. So us men want our grooming routine to be a one and done deal, with the days of using the same trimmer for your face and other parts of your body now over. And that is all thanks to our friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trimmed from 12 to 6, if you get what I'm saying. So I'm introducing the Beard and Balls bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger. Now, it's not this sort of lawnmower, folks. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? What I mean is whether, you need to get precision trimming, put it that way, for all the sensitive areas. So I'm talking about a trimmer for the moneymaker, another for the boys downstairs. This trimmer gets it right the first time, being gentle on the skin in all the delicate places. With 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads, you can choose between a precise trim or a smooth finish. And did I mention it's waterproof, so you can trim in the shower and avoid making a mess everywhere. Perfect for those of us who appreciate efficiency. Next, let's talk about the Beard Hedger. So whether you're going for a neat stubble, I think I'm neat stubble today, rather than the full-on lumberjack look, this trimmer has you covered. It features a titanium-coated stainless steel T-blade and 20 length options, so that's 20 lengths options. Really, really good. It means you can achieve any style you wish with the twist of the zoom wheel. And just like the lawnmower, the Beard Hedger is also waterproof, so you can handle your beard grooming right in the sink or shower without worrying about water damage. With up to 60 minutes of runtime and an LED charge indicator, you'll never be caught mid-trim with a dead battery. It is genuinely such a gentle product, so no more cuts. You'll keep your loved one happy. And using this product will really increase your confidence too. And the brilliant thing is, today you get 20% off and free shipping if you use the code Outspoken at manscaped.com. So that's 20% off and free shipping simply using the code Outspoken at manscaped.com. No more juggling multiple tools or dealing with subpar results, just efficient, effective grooming wherever you need it. For the premium grooming experience, trust Manscaped. But now, back to the show, and let me return to Alex Armstrong and Nicholas Lissack, and of course, huge developments across the Atlantic, where Joe Biden is under the most intense pressure to give away the Democratic nomination, but he is digging his heels in, and this comes on the back of just a spectacular speech from Donald Trump last night, where you could really get a genuine sense of how the failed assassination attempt has changed his entire demeanor. Watch what happened on stage at the RMC in Milwaukee when he spoke about the exact moment where he was shot.
And felt something hit me really, really hard on my right ear. I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood, just absolutely blood all over the place. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to the stage, and they really did. They rushed to the stage. These are great people at great risk, I will tell you, and felt something.
Wow, what did you make of that speech, Alex?
Quite touching, actually. I watched it live, and actually seeing him talk about this for the first time was quite an impact. And just watching it back there, Dan, to see the emotions of the audience as well, they were clearly very impacted by all of this. And, you know, Trump means so much to America right now. And Nigel Farage is absolutely right to put him on the spotlight in the UK because, you know, as we saw today with Nigel and some reporters, this is the difference between war and peace, particularly here in Europe. And so not only does he mean a lot to domestic America, he means a lot to us internationally. And to see what happened to him due to the nasty and dangerous rhetoric that is constantly being spewed out by the mainstream media and the left-wing Democrats who still haven't repented for saying these nasty things over the last 8 years even, calling him Hitler and fascist and a danger to democracy. It really says something about America. But I'm now in no doubt that Donald Trump will win this election and he will turn the tide back. That's what we need. We need a strong leader for the West. And to see him alive and speaking with such enthusiasm and energy, even though the start of that speech was touching, and he made a beautiful, beautiful tribute to those that the man Corey that had lost his life and those who've been injured. But to see him back on form so quickly shows how strong he is. You compare that with Joe Biden, who's hiding because he's got COVID at the moment and who can't even sustain his presidency for much longer. And the choice is pretty stark for the American people.
I mean, the 25th Amendment should absolutely be enacted when it comes to
100%.
Biden, because how on earth can they say you're not mentally capable to run, but you're mentally capable to have your finger over the nuclear button? I think the MSM and Democrats have really shamed themselves over this. But look, speaking
agreed.
of the MSM, I want to show you this clip. I mean, it's hilarious. Channel 4 News, woke Channel 4, we know what they're like, but look at the massive story that's going on in the US with both Trump and Biden. But what are they focused on? Gotcha questions, pathetic gotcha questions to Nigel Farage and Liz Truss. Watch this.
Nigel Farage, have you seen Donald Trump yet?
No, I haven't.
Are you going to?
Yes.
When's your audience with him?
I don't know yet.
But you're here to see him tonight.
I am.
And
Which way we go?
did he ask you to come?
I'm here.
But did he ask you? Were you invited?
What's it got to do with you?
Should you not be with your constituents?
What's it got to do with you?
It's only a question.
There's an 8-day week. As long as I work 7 of them, we're okay.
Okay. And you're here because you're still a big Trump fan. You think Trump's politics are the way forward?
For peace, yes.
For peace? What do you mean?
I think peace comes through strength, not through weakness. And I think his 4 years were a good 4 years in terms of foreign policy. Far better than anything we've seen since with Joe Biden.
Thank you. Why you're here? Have you met President Trump? Are you going to speak to President Trump? Are you? We're Channel 4 News. Have you met President Trump? Are you going to speak to President Trump? Why are you here? Liz Truss, why are you here? Liz Truss, I mean, it's a simple question. Why are you here? Are you coming to actually see President Trump or just to be here to soak it all up? Would you not want to say you're actually here? You bothered to come the whole way.
I mean, I just despair about the state of our mainstream media, especially with their complete harassment of Liz Truss. And Nicholas, I just saw before coming on air a tweet from the truly repulsive Marina Purkis, who is one of these members of the Be Kind left mob, who is everything that she claims her enemy are. She has just written about Liz Truss. Dear Liz Truss, you're an embarrassment, a stain, someone we collectively hope to ignore and forget. Please do yourself and the people of the United Kingdom a favour and F off into oblivion, which tells me that the British left, Nicholas, have learned absolutely nothing from what happened to Trump at the weekend and the danger of that sort of subhuman rhetoric being spread about our politicians.
No, they haven't, and I don't think they ever will. And of course, the Be Kind crowd are actually often the most toxic, the most rude, the most vile. You know, I've had people with hashtag Be Kind in their bios calling me the most disgusting, despicable, horrendous things. No doubt you have also been subject to this horrendous abuse, Jack and Alex. And, you know, even in the States, you have these so-called Be Kind people who keep saying that they wish the bullet had been an inch closer. You have Mark Hamill pushing a QAnon-level conspiracy theory that I like to call Bluanon, that Trump actually faked the shooting. You have Joy Reid having breakdowns over the fact that Trump wasn't killed. You have NBC pulling shows because they're afraid that Morning Joe, I believe it's NBC, that Morning Joe is going to not condemn the assassin and actually praise him. It is horrendous. And the demonization of people on the right by people on the left is only getting worse. And I'll tell you right now, circling back to what I said earlier, a lot of young people are very afraid to come out in support of reform because they are utterly, utterly utterly terrified of the demonization. We saw this at the NEC when, after the event, some children who had their photos posted who were attending there, good, patriotic, young British kids who were, enthusiastically supporting, politics at their age. At their age, I was only obsessed with cartoons. They had their photos posted online. They were effectively doxxed, and they were called Nazis. They were referred to as members of the Hitler Youth. And I must say, these people, they have no shame. The British left have absolutely no shame. When they're willing, there's one thing going after Donald Trump. And you know what? It was absolutely horrific what happened to him. I watched the shooting live, and I was deeply affected by what happened, because if June 16th, 2015 changed my life forever, if it hadn't been for that moment when Trump descended the escalator, God knows where I'd be right now, because he got me interested in politics. So that greatly affected me. And I was very heartened to hear that he was okay. But the demonization of figures on the left, if that had happened to Joe Biden, I wouldn't support it. That's absolutely despicable. Even though I despise Joe Biden's policies, I think he is an incompetent president. I think the cabinet need to invoke the 25th Amendment as soon as possible. I mean, heck, he doesn't even remember who his wife is. He was caught trying to kiss another woman recently.
Absolutely. But you're not telling him to F off into oblivion, which seems to suggest political violence. So I think Marina Purkiss should be absolutely ashamed on herself. And
she should be.
The MSM continue to book her on their shows, then you'll know that they have a total double standard, although we know that already.
Of course.
Brilliant superstar panel. Nicholas Lissack, Alex Armstrong. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will speak very soon. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.